Thank you all so much for being here with us today, for spending part of your late morning, early afternoon with us, depending on which part of the country you're joining us from. This session is the first in our spring data series, where we're going to be exploring some different tools that can help level up the data game at your institutions. And so this particular session, we have data. Now what? And I know from my time in colleges of education, I could connect with that title. We have lots of data in our education world, right? But it's really about developing a life cycle of that data that allows us to make data-informed decisions with the data that we have. And so that's what we want to lean into today. We want to share some things that we hope will be helpful to you in your data endeavors. So we are going to spend just a few moments talking about who we are as an organization, and moving very quickly into our connector for today, which will be short as well, because our primary time together, our informative part of this workshop is 60 minutes. And then we have the last 30 minutes of this time reserved for question and answer, almost an office hour style meeting, where we can just kind of go deeper if that's something that you are interested in doing, or if you have specific questions about the tool. So the bulk of what we're doing today is going to be in the first 60 minutes. So we'll move quickly. We're going to talk about data-informed decision-making, and with that, the power of disaggregation of our data when we are looking at how we are going to go deeper with our data, and some different ways that we can leverage data disaggregation to really push forward our work. We, as I said, want to share the data inventory guide with you, and then give you some time to explore it, both individually and as a group, going a little bit deeper. So with that in mind, let's keep going, dive in, and tell you a little bit more about who we are.
So hello, everybody. Welcome again. It's great to have all of you with us. I know we have some familiar faces, and it looks like we might have some new faces. So we want to share just a little bit about who we are. Branch Ed is a professional services organization. We work with university faculty and our PK-12 partners with the express goal to ensure that all children have a high quality educator that they deserve, and also that our children have role models as teachers who look and sound like them. So we work with communities. We function from an ecological perspective and believe very strongly in equity of voice and ensuring that all representatives are part of our conversations and our learning. And we do this by providing customized learning opportunities. And the easiest way to explain this is we have different centers and different kind of departments that serve different groups, right? So we have individuals that comes out of our Birch Center. Those are professional development learning opportunities, both short, such as this, a 1-hour learning event with the office hours, or face-to-face 3-day events. And those are focused specifically on individuals. Our most extensive support is the Transformation Center, and that is a 3-year intensive engagement in which we work with faculty and, again, their district partners around collaboration, data empowerment, ensuring quality programming that's data informed at scale and sustainable. And then, of course, we also work with communities. We've done some very interesting work with community organizations around early literacy and also with families. So again, want to really emphasize the ecological approach to education and how committed we are to that. And so we are going to do some. So the workshop is going to be recorded, and we'll send it to you as a follow-up. Any resources and so forth will be provided in the chat in Zoom. Please use the chat to share any questions or comments that you might have. And, we ask for folks to be on camera as much as possible. At the same time, we know that this is lunchtime for many people, so you may be eating and may not want to be on camera because you're doing so, and that's okay. We respect that as well, whatever works best for you. I am Patty Alvarez McHatton. I am the Chief Program Officer for Branch Ed. In that capacity, I oversee all programmatic aspects. Prior to coming to Branch Ed, I spent years in higher ed as faculty, department chair, dean, and also spent some time in academic affairs. And I will turn it over to my co-presenter, Elizabeth.
It is so lovely, as I said, to be with you all. I'm Elizabeth Lisic, and I'm the Assistant Director of our Birch Professional Learning Center here at Branch Ed. And I am very thankful for the opportunity to support learning events like this, our in-person learning events, and many of our other resources like our learning modules. So we hope that through this event, if you haven't had a lot of time to experience and dig in and explore some of our offerings, that if you have questions about that, you can stick around as well. So we'll say that anything about this session, but also if you have questions more broadly about Branch Ed or about engaging with our learning events moving forward, we would love to talk more about that at the conclusion of this as well. So as we continue, Patty talked a little bit about this, but as we always like to begin our time together with some norms so that we are all starting at that same foundational place. And that is to be present with us and contribute to the discussion. Some of this our time together today, because this is a very short form workshop, will be more informative. We'll be sharing some information with you, but there are opportunities for you to engage with your colleagues and contribute to discussions both in the group and in smaller groups. So we do ask that you share your ideas, that you contribute to that, because we truly believe in the power of voice, equity of voice, as Patty said, and also learning from all of you in the room, from the community of experts that has come together today for this learning event. In today's workshop specifically, we're talking, as I said earlier, about the importance of data-informed decision-making. We're digging into the power of data disaggregation and exploring a tool together that can support our further exploration, our deep dive, and dialogue around our data. So because we are sharing that tool today, one of the things we wanted to make sure is that we could get the tool to you all in the best way. And so at Branch Ed, we have a resource portal. It says register now. However, we have pre-registered all of you that weren't already registered for the portal. So you should have gotten a few emails, one from more recently, but this morning, an email from Branch Alliance that gives you the opportunity to go ahead and log in and create your password for the resource portal. You will need this today as we go through. So I'm going to say, go ahead. If you didn't see that and already do it, check your email, look for that. If you have any problems accessing that email or accessing the portal, please reach out in the chat to Jennifer Reese. She's our chat host today, and she is also going to be supporting us, making sure that we can get that resource to each and every one of you during this workshop. We're going to be coming back to the resource later. So this is like that preview spoiler that you're going to want to get into the resource portal later on in this workshop. So let's jump right into some connection. One of the things we were talking about as we were preparing for this workshop is how, we often take for granted all of the data that surrounds us. And this is both in our programs, but also in our everyday life. So we just want to take 3 or 4 minutes here at the top and think about some of the data that we are using daily. I was thinking about this, and the first thought that came to my mind was every morning before I can the dogs make me get up first. But after that, before I really can even drag myself to my coffee, is checking the weather, right? I'm going to check the weather and I'm going to look, and it's going to impact my day. It's going to inform some decisions that I make moving into my day. Sometimes it informs whether that coffee is hot or iced, because that's how I'm feeling. Sometimes it's what I choose to wear that day, or what if I tell my kids to get a jacket before they leave. So that data that I'm taking in is informing my actions, often subconsciously. I don't even realize it. So that is one example of this daily data that we encounter. We're going to go into some quick breakout rooms, and you're going to have a chance to share with 2 or 3 people some data that you take in each day and how it informs your actions or decisions. Okay, it doesn't have to get serious. It could be maybe you have some really serious data you take in every day, but it could be something as simple as the weather. All right, so Jennifer, take us away to our breakout rooms. Welcome back.
I hope you had great conversations. One, you got to meet new people, hopefully, and then had a little bit of conversation about all the data that seems to swirl around us all the time. It's sometimes rather overwhelming. So we'll wait until everybody comes back on board and then we'll move on.
It is a little overwhelming. I have days I certainly do feel the overload.
Well, it's, you know, I don't know about any of you, but sometimes, you know, I just kind of sit there and go, there's so much that you don't know where to start, right? It's
Absolutely.
analysis paralysis, right?
Yes,
Thinking about that.
it truly is. It truly is.
Jennifer, let me know when when everybody's back.
Yeah, we have a few people still in their rooms. Does anyone want to share some data, like something that you talked about in your group? Anyone else check the weather every day?
Oh, Kimberly's off her thing. Kim.
Ours, a common one is we all said weather and traffic, but is our email. I like to know what I'm walking into in the office.
Yes.
One of them had said, that's why I don't check it. At least I have a few more minutes of peace before I walk in. So
That's fair. That is fair. And I will say, I didn't even, now that I primarily work from a home office, I didn't even think about traffic. But yes, that used to be, right, much more of a thought going into my day. That's a great point. All right. It looks like everyone's back, Patty.
I think we are. So hopefully you've had some good conversation. What we really want to think about as we engage the rest of our time together is really thinking about the power of intentional inquiry. You know, we've all talked about all the data that we have, and not only do we have data, but we also have these reporting expectations and guidelines, right? We've got the state is asking us for data, you know, our accrediting bodies are asking us for data, and there's things that we provide them. But sometimes that data doesn't really provide information that allows us to really think about program improvement. It's important information. You need to do it. You need to provide it, but it isn't necessarily substantive enough or discrete enough to really be able to give us an idea of what it is that we need to be looking at. So really, the idea of data is more than just checking a box. You know, so-and-so wants it, I gave it to him, it's good and done. It really is about thinking about how do we use the data to inform our decisions and guide our actions. So how does it drive our thinking? What are our hypotheses? How can we test them? How can we personalize learning for our students to ensure that they're all being successful? How do we allocate resources into programs that are resulting in improved outcomes for our students, both at PK-12 as well as in higher ed? And really this idea of continuous improvement. The idea of engaging with data is not a one and done. It really is all right, let's try this. It worked. Can we get better? And it is about continuously improving the work that we do. And so one of the things, or a few of the other things that we want us to think about when it comes to making data-informed decision-making is really focusing on how do we address disparities within the outcome data that we have. And it really is focused about success for our students. We want all students, whatever level they're at, to be all they can be and achieve the goals that they want. We want to ensure that there's equitable outcomes. And so sometimes that means we need to figure out what is it that different children need in order to be able to reach the expectations that we have for all our children. And of course, also responding to our students and our communities. And And so I had the pleasure, I don't know if any of you are from Texas, but I had the pleasure of working with Art Cavazos, who was the superintendent at Harlingen a few years ago. And he always used to say, plan the work and work the plan. And I just, that always stuck with me because it really is profound, simple, but profound. Doing data improved work, continuous improvement, it doesn't just happen. It takes a process. It takes a plan. And there are a lot of ways that you can structure your data analysis, data engagement. You need to find which one works best for you. But regardless of what you do, we really want you to think about your data work from developing the plan, planning the work, and then working the plan. And I think if we all adhere to that mantra, we will all be successful in the work that we do.
You know, as we were talking about this, as we were preparing, we thought, you know, there are quite a few processes and frameworks out there. I'm going to share one of them with you in just a second. But to Patty's point, it really isn't about this plan. It's about having a plan, right? And so, you know, your institutional culture, you know, your community, you know, how people respond, you know, the time constraints and the other things that you're working around. But at the end of the day, what we know is when we don't have a plan to engage with our data, oftentimes we can get back in that checking the box mindset. And so when we create the plan and we walk in knowing that, we are more likely to really be able to go deep in our engagement and exploration of our data to inform our decisions. So this is one plan, the data-informed decision-making cycle that you may be familiar with. And I am going to very briefly talk about it just so that those steps and thinking about that kind of get in our mind. And I think many of these plans, processes, frameworks start the same, where we start by really thinking about defining the specific goals and objectives that we are wanting to achieve with our analysis. So whether they're achievement related, whether they're around teacher effectiveness, allocation of resources, we know what our objectives are in regard to our data. And then we have to gather the relevant data for that, right? So we begin seeking out data from different sources and making sure that the collection of the data is accurate, reliable, and comprehensive. And that is part of our plan. It doesn't just happen when we're in data analysis. When we think about data-informed decision-making, it has to be based on quality data, right? And so we're actually, our next workshop 2 of this series is going to talk about that, how we make sure our survey instruments and tools are valid and reliable so that the data we're collecting is accurate, comprehensive, reliable. We have to also organize and analyze our data. So when we are organizing our collected data in a way that we can analyze it to look at patterns and trends and insights, again, it's part of the plan. We're doing it for more than just an accreditation report. We're doing it to begin to dig into the questions that have surfaced as part of our inquiry. There's the interpretation of findings, where we're looking at the data, the analyzed data in regards to and in relationship to those outcomes and goals and objectives that we identified in step 1. And we look at what the data is telling us and what actions might be necessary, because we then move into that decision-making stage, right? Where we're making informed decisions. We are looking at the next steps to take. This might be looking at the implementation of specific interventions, the allocation of certain resources, how you want to adjust instructional strategies or change up our syllabi, creating new programs. There's so many things that might look like. But what we know is the decision making is informed by the data because it's part of the process, right? And then, of course, we have to put our actions into work, right? We are actually implementing those things, putting the decisions into action, making sure stakeholders are a part of that and that their voice has been represented in this process. And then monitoring our progress, watching our outcomes, and then reflecting on it. We don't stop until we reflect and go back into this iterative process to inform this cycle the next time, right? And so it's by following these steps in a really systematic way, having the plan set up in advance, following those steps, we can ensure that our decision-making processes are grounded in data and that we are making more informed decisions around our programs and our classes. So however it is that you showed up, whatever your role is as you come into this time today, that's something to think about, right? Is not just, some of these decisions are program-wide, and some of these are looking at data that are informing my own actions in this one course that I'm teaching. One of the things that we wanted to surface that we think is a really important caveat to this discussion is that oftentimes the data we look at is reported in the aggregate, right? We're looking at all domains, a certification exam, and this is the pass-fail, this is the score, right? What we know is that there is often power in disaggregating that data, breaking it down, using our questions and our objectives to think about how we should break that down, and that it's not just a pass-fail, it's not just looking at it even one way by race, right? But it's reporting data and analyzing data in multi-dimensional categories that really help us understand the unique and nuanced experiences of our students. And it's not just about looking at our program overall, but it's breaking it down. One of the things that I think oftentimes I've seen in programs that I've worked with is we have the data and we look at it, but we don't go deeper than that. So we might know, hey, we're really struggling in, this particular, I'm in Tennessee, so we use a praxis. So we're really struggling with this praxis exam, but we're not diving deep to then think about, how is that? What domains are our students struggling with? And how does that map into our program? So there's so much we can do there. We also want to be able to deploy the correct supports for our students. And unless we're looking at the data more specifically, and we're drilling down in these disaggregated areas, it's harder for us to do that. So we want you to think about that and let that guide some of your conversation and discussion as we move forward.
And what I would want to say at this point is, first things first, this is what I found. We have all of these guidelines and reporting guidelines and expectations. And so there are things that are uppermost in our minds as far as data, what we have available and what we need to do with it. And so we develop kind of like this tunnel vision. I have this data, this is where I need to send it to, and this is what it tells me, and that's that. We really don't go into a place where we one, interrogate how much data we have, where is it, where does it come from, all of those kinds of things. And then what do we do with it? What are some possibilities? Because again, we follow what it is that we're expected to kind of provide, right? The reporting guidelines, those kinds of things. So when I was in higher ed, one of the things that we did is really sit down and say, okay, let's have like a brain dump. Let's do this activity where we're really brainstorming all of the possible data that we know we have available to us and begin to think about, is there anything that this data can tell us that can help us do the work better and inform our practice? So if you will go to the next slide, please, Elizabeth, thank you. So what we did is we developed this branch head. We called it an inventory guide. And so we just made a comprehensive listing of all the data that is likely to be available in your institution. It is, I think it's pretty expansive, but it may not capture everything. It certainly may not capture everything that you have as far as your own institution and your own data. And what this document does, it then becomes this record of where, when, and from whom you can obtain your data. Because I think that's the other thing that we sometimes find out. Okay, so I know we have this data, someone has it, but I'm not sure who it is or how to go about getting it. So this is really helping you like plot this out. Again, developing the plan so that you can then plan the work. So it also promotes discussion with who you need to engage with as far as analysis and action planning, as well as thinking about your audience, because it's not always the same people that need particular data. And it also provide some questions that emerged from us as we started looking at that information. So if you go to the next one, so this gives you an idea, and we want you to get it. This is the document we want you to download so you can kind of engage with it. So what we did is we listed, okay, what are some data? Well, we know, for example, in this case here, we all have student overall GPA, and that data is used in a variety of different ways. So admissions to the institution, to the EPP, you can get it by semester, you know, a variety of different ways. So we listed all of that. How can we disaggregate the data? Because again, sometimes we think, oh, well, let's disaggregate it by race. But there's also, you know, first-time, full-time student. Are they early college, high school students? So again, we tried to brainstorm all of the different ways that you could possibly disaggregate it. The next step was really thinking about, well, what does it tell me? Because sometimes we have data, it doesn't tell us anything. So if it doesn't tell us anything, then we don't need it. We can move on to something that's actually giving us some pertinent information that can help us with the work that we're doing. The rest of the questions are questions that you would, or responses that you would add as you go through it. Is it available where you're at? Who owns it? How do you get it? When do I access it? When does it make sense to pull these data? Whom should I engage in order to do an analysis? Who needs to have the information, and whom should I share the findings with? And when should I share the findings? When is it pertinent to do that? And then the last column is, what questions do I have? So when I look at this data and I start thinking about, that's really interesting. What are some things that come to my mind that would be really interesting to know given what that data is? And so this entire document is really going through this process with the different types of data that we kind of thought of. It really was a brainstorming session. We think it's pretty expansive. Elizabeth, I don't know if you want to add anything in here to this.
Yeah, so Jennifer's going to go ahead and put the link in the chat for this so that you can begin to pull it from the resource portal. And I was just going to say that you will, as you scroll, you will see that this is, you know, our candidate data. This involves completer data, employment data. So we really have, as Patty said, try to think more broadly. So as you are clicking that link and going to the resource portal, you can let Jennifer know. You can direct message her in the chat if you have any problems accessing it.
And I was going to say, just so you can see how comprehensive it is, it's an 18-page document. So it really was us sitting there and saying, whew, here's everything that we can think of.
Yeah, don't you all wish you were in that conversation? Don't you just wish you were there?
Listen, we had so much fun. I can't even begin to tell you. Actually, it really was fun to really stop and think these things through.
All right. So we are going to go ahead and begin exploring the data inventory guide. And as you pull that, I'm going to talk to you about some breakout groups that we're going into. And this is where you're going to get to more deeply explore. So you can scroll through and see all of the different data that is available to discuss. But we are going to go into breakout groups. And in your group number is going to be the breakout room number you're in. So take note of that as you go into your breakout room, which room you are going into. We're going to put the link to a Jamboard in the chat, and I'm going to show you the Jamboard in a second before we go so you can see what it's going to look like. But actually, let me go ahead and do that because I think this will make more sense if you see it. So let me pull that brief really quickly for you. And I'm going to walk you through what we're going to do here. So the idea is that you are going to go to the page of the Jamboard that connects to your room number. So room 2, room 3, you'll see noted here at the top, and you control that navigation through these arrows at the top if you're not familiar with Jamboard. And so room 2, for example, you're going to be looking at candidate performance data. And so we've listed here in this box the specific data points that you are going to be discussing. And so you're going to find those on the data inventory guide. Look at the suggested, the recommended disaggregation guide. You're going to look at the questions that are asked. And then as a group, you're going to talk about how you're currently using these data to inform decisions. You're going to brainstorm some new ways you could use these data to inform decisions. And think about what additional questions might you think of that you might like to ask of the data to really deepen and guide your inquiry. And you can use the Post-it note function over here to type what you want. You're going to save it, and then you can come and you can drag it into the box that you'd like to use and adjust the size accordingly. All right, so your group is going to have the opportunity to do that together and guide your discussion. We are going to be coming back together and share out a little bit about what you discussed, but most of the remaining time will be spent in these groups talking about these data. The idea being you can start to think, how might I be able to use this guide to guide my inquiry, right? Use this tool to guide my inquiry into different areas of data exploration. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and throw that Jamboard link in the chat. And Jennifer is going to send us into groups, but are there any questions first? Let's pause briefly. Any questions? All right. You will know which Jamboard page to go to, again, based on the room number you were sent to. All right. If there's any questions, we'll be right here in this main room to answer them. But let's go ahead and head to our rooms. Hi, Frida. It's good to see you.
Hi, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm great. How you been? I don't
Good
think I've
over
seen you
here.
this year.
I know. Well, you'll see me next month for a day.
Yes, I can't wait. All right, I think we've got everybody back with us. So thank you all so much for spending a few moments with your group, discussing, engaging, digging in, and having some conversation around the data. I love looking at your Jamboards as your conversations were ongoing and seeing the ways different groups were kind of navigating the spaces and the questions. And so
I'm sorry,
Go
let me
ahead.
just, I think we should share the Jamboards as well when we share the PowerPoints and the
Sure
recording.
will.
Make sure we do that too.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. So with that, we wanted to take just a moment here and give you a moment to maybe talk about any insights or takeaways that surfaced during your group conversation. We just have 2 or 3 minutes here. If there was anything you wanted to share, we'd love to hear.
So Andre, I don't know if you have something to share, but you're unmuted and it looks like you want to say something, or maybe not.
Oh man, we were
I
so
know.
close.
I know.
I'll say group 1, I watched you all pop stuff on that Jamboard. And so if there is anyone from group 1 that wants to share anything about your conversation, I'd love to hear it. Well,
Isn't
go
Well,
ahead.
We're group 2. I can share for group 2 if
Yeah,
nobody from
great.
group 1 wants to go. So we only made it through like the first area of how we currently are using the data to inform our decisions. But one of the takeaways for me was that within the room, being in Texas, we obviously have our own understanding of what teacher certification looks like, but to hear other institutions from California and North Carolina having the same discussions and conversations around the topics and like what the requirements are for getting into their EPPs, et cetera. So it just gives me a different perspective and kind of understanding of, okay, well, what we're doing is similar to what they're doing in North Carolina. And just, I guess, that reaffirmation that what we are doing is working, even though we don't always see the growth right away, right? Like it takes time.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Anyone else want to share any thoughts or takeaways?
All right. Well, unless someone, the spirit moves them and they just have this burning desire to say something in the last few minutes that we have together, I just want to share a couple of things. The first thing that I want to say is really, really think about disseminating the work that you're doing around data. We put on our slide, inquiring minds want to know. As Rebecca said, we're all struggling with the same kind of issues. We're all trying to figure out what do we do with this data? What makes meaning? Those kinds of things. And we don't often see that information shared within, journals or practitioner journals or anything like that. So I really encourage you to really think about sharing how you planned the work and how you worked the plan so that others can learn from it. And I would also urge you that as you think about doing that, we always like to say, and here's where we are. And so it's kind of like, this is the wonderful things that we did. And we don't often share the struggles that we experienced to get to that wonderful thing. And it is in the struggle that we all learn. So when you disseminate and talk about your efforts, certainly highlight your successes, but talk about your struggles too, because that's where the rest of us can learn. And I see Julie. Julie, so good to see you. You've got your hand raised.
So good to see you.
Go ahead.
So in our group, so I'm Julie Johnson from the University of Laverne. And in our group, we had completer data for our slide. And one of the things that we were talking about, and I wanted to put a bug in the thinking caps of branch ed, is how do we maintain that connection with our postgraduate completers? So how do we maintain that to get that additional data? Like I shared when we were in our transformation project, and we partnered with our district to do the early teachers and veteran teachers survey, but that was with our branch ed partnership with our district. In general, like we would love ideas on how to maintain and foster that connection and collaboration after they go into the field.
That's good.
So I just wanted to put it out there for you guys to think about, and I would love a workshop or resources on supporting that.
Good to know. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
And it is good to see you. And so the beautiful thing here is now we have 40 new BFFs. So if there are any of you in this group who have some ideas on how to do that, please share them with Elizabeth and I, and we're happy to then share it back with the group, because I saw several of you nodding like, yeah, that would be really good to know. So feel free to share some of that information if you have some ideas on how to go about doing that. Elizabeth, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to first thank you all so much for spending this hour with us. Jennifer is going to put a link to our feedback evaluation in the chat. We would love to hear from you a little bit about your thoughts following this hour of time we had together. But we also want you to know that we are keeping this room open until everyone decides that they need to move on or go. So there is nothing saying you have to leave now. We do want to provide you that space if you need to move on and do other things, but we are keeping this room open for questions and answers. If you want to hear more about branch ed, if you have a question about one of our learning events, if you want to talk about this tool or talk about some specific wins you've had or challenges you've faced in regards to your data, this space is open and available, and we would love to stay and chat with you.
And I'm going to put one more link in the chat. That document that you worked with is actually part of a three-part document, which is a data empowerment, and then there's another guide that goes with it on visualization. So I put the link there. Now you have access to our resource portal. You can go to that link and download. You may find that information as well. Certainly encourage you to explore the resource portal because there's a lot of really good information there. But I echoes Elizabeth's thank you for taking your time to spend time with us.
Yes, and so good to see some familiar faces and some new faces. We've really enjoyed some time with you together this afternoon.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.